video, right? So we are talking about folate versus folic acid, and thank you to all of you that left questions. So I'm going to try to answer some of those. So when we're talking about folate versus folic acid, we're talking about how a nutrient is metabolized, as well as your genetics and how they play into that as well. So this works with MTHFR. So maybe you've heard of that. It stands for methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. So that is an enzyme, and it's associated with certain genetics in your body. And it is involved in methylation. So methylation is a chemical process that's involved in over 250 different reactions in your body. So it's a big deal. It affects so much. And we all have some mutations in our genetics that you can get from your mom or a dad. And when you have a mutation in that gene, it can affect how that gene works. And with MTHFR, it's estimated that even up to about 70% of people might have some degree of mutation or effect on that gene, which is affecting a lot of their body. So folate is very, very important for methylation for this entire process. And the issue that comes up with MTHFR and having a mutation is when it's paired with your environment, and the environment that we live in today. So we have a lot of stress and toxins, chemicals, diet, medications, even things like metformin and birth control can affect your methylation process. And it can all make your ability to methylate even further impaired. And one of those things that impairs your ability to methylate even more is folic acid. So folate comes from plants. It's a natural vitamin, vitamin B9, that comes from plants. And it is unique because it can donate a methyl group, which is needed for methylation. But when we started processing a bunch of food, a few decades ago, we took away the natural vitamins and minerals to help make this food more shelf stable and to make it cheaper to process. And we noticed that this started to result in birth defects and other effects. So instead of going back to the whole plant, we came up with a synthetic way to put the nutrients back in, and that is folic acid. So folic acid is synthetic vitamin, and unfortunately we're not God, and nutrition is actually a really, really new field, and we don't know how to do that. We can't replace this natural thing. And so it had consequences. Folic acid does not have that methyl group to donate. So in order to make it usable in your body, it has to go through a bunch of different transformations and processes. You need to have a clean, stress-free environment in your cells to be able to do that. And you have to have the right genetics. So you can't have those mutations that we talked about that a lot of people have. So you can see how this is becoming really difficult for a bunch of people. So this means you can be eating folic acid, taking it in, and you have it going around your cells, not actually being taken into your cells. You're not absorbing it and using it. And it has other issues as well. So taking folic acid can actually make it harder for you to absorb natural folate because it can block the receptors on your cells to absorb folate. And it can actually cover up B12 deficiencies. So if you get a blood test ever and your B12 comes back really, really high, this might be a sign that you're having problems methylating, and actually your B12 is not making it into the cells, and your cells are actually deficient. Other issues that can come up, there's tons that are being tied to this now. We're talking about fertility, so it can lower fertility. And you can have issues with your cycle, issues with ovulation, higher risk of pregnancy complications, higher risk of miscarriage, recurrent miscarriage, and a possible link to contributors such as tongue ties in babies even we are seeing with MTHFR. So this is really important for both men and women when trying to conceive. MTHFR can affect the sperm, it can affect your eggs, And one of those examples is recurrent miscarriages. It can be actually the man that has the MTHFR mutation that's affecting his sperm, causing more miscarriages in the woman, because once again, this is a 50-50 deal, right? So it's very complicated. If you want me to talk more about MTHFR specifically, we can get into that another time, but I am trying to tell you a little bit about folate versus folic acid today. So despite all of this, it's not being talked about. It's not being talked about in the conventional medical system hardly at all. And unfortunately, because there's almost zero nutritional education for doctors, they don't know much better. You know, they don't know any better, and they don't know how to advise. So I've gotten a couple questions on this week, and one of them is, how do you know if you have an issue? So one of them is health struggles. So if you have symptoms, they can vary widely, but if you have a chronic condition, you struggle with fertility, you should be tested. A couple markers that you can look at that can give us insight is the genetic test. So it's simple test that can test your genes to see if you have mutations in the MTHFR genes. And there's two main ones, but it's good to get a better comprehensive panel than just that. Another test is your B12. Once again, seeing if that is super high, that can be a sign of methylation issues. And your homocysteine, which is an inflammatory marker. If that's super high, that can show that you're having issues with methylation as well. How much processed food do you eat? You could be taking in a lot of folic acid. Have you been supplementing with folic acid? You may be more likely to be struggling with your methylation now. I also got asked, what are the right supplements? So you do want to switch to supplements that have the active form of folate, which is going to be something like folinic acid or L-methylfolate, methyl tetrahydrofolate, quadrafolic. Those are some of the words that you're going to see. But you want to avoid anything that says folic acid. Avoid that completely, whether you have the MTHFR mutation or not. Avoid it, because remember, your environment can affect how well you methylate as well. And eat whole foods, so leafy greens, healthy meat products, organ meats, those are all actually really high in natural folate. And avoid anything that's fortified, those processed foods. So another question is, what if methylated vitamins give you anxiety? That is something that can come up when you have an MTHFR mutation. And that might be because you have other nutritional deficiencies that are in play right now. And you need to get those to address those, as well as folate. And B3 is like a common one that can affect this. But you might want to build up slowly with methylated vitamins and don't just jump into like high dose. That's not what we want to do, but find the right form of vitamins. And add them in slowly over time. You can also find whole food supplements that don't have folic acid but aren't full of methylfolate either. So if you and your husband have any fertility, reproductive health issues, or if you're struggling with any sort of chronic health condition, I do encourage you to get a test. It's so easy. It's like a cheek swab. So easy test to check your genetics. It's not very expensive, especially considering that you only do it once in your life. If you've had a miscarriage or a previous baby with an issue such as like tongue tie, I would encourage you to test as well too and see how your genes are playing into this. And make sure we're taking the right type of supplements. So what else can you do? Educate others. So talk to your doctors about this. They might not know about folate and the differences with folic acid. So you bringing it to the attention, talking about MTHFR, is only going to help us spread this education. So that's a good thing. So don't be afraid to bring it up with them, because they might not have the education, but they might go get it. And so if you guys have any other questions, please comment below, and we can all, continue this conversation in the Natural Fertility Support Group on Facebook, talking about folate, folic acid, MTHFR. I'd love to answer any questions you have. and send me a message if you'd like to learn more about the testing or how that might work for you and your family. So thanks for this quick video, and I will catch up with you guys later.